Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good evening. It is 9 o'clock p.m. here in Calgary, Alberta. Wednesday night, October the 12th. And I'm glad to be here. This is Child Abuse Prevention is Up to Us, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And, I'm just glad to be able to do these shows, glad to be able to continue on. I've done like over 800 shows now, so it's a lot of shows. I actually have skipped quite a few shows and cut back on a few shows that I've been doing, and mainly just to take a break. I was just tired, and but I'm glad to be here, and I love doing these shows. I would like to speak out about child abuse and speak out against child abuse and really be a voice for these children out here, who don't have a voice, unless we're speaking out for them on their behalf. And sadly enough, kids are going to die tonight. If they don't die, they're going to be in the hospital due to the abuse-related injuries. And if they're not in the hospital, they're just laying around someplace wherever they've been abused and tortured. And it is horrific. And, we all need to do something. And I just like to be a voice of kind of the voice, a conscious, sort of just say, let's not forget these children out here. I don't. I never have. I've been able to just completely forget them. It's horrific. Like, the issues of child abuse have just always bothered me because I was abused as a child, and it just makes me so angry. It's just not even just me. A lot of my friends were abused as children, and people say, well, could it really be that many children being abused? Absolutely. And it's real mostly ignorance on the caregiver's part. Really, that's exactly what it is. People just not thinking about what they're doing to their children or children that are in their care. And it's really unfortunate because that's who these children are relying on. That's who these children are counting on to do the right things by them and to make sure that their needs are being met, and that they're not being abused. And sadly enough, it is. I mean, if you look at the stats and you look at what the stats are, just about everywhere you look, it's almost always a parent or caregiver, and if it's not, it's a boyfriend or girlfriend or somebody in the home who's allowed to have access to that child. So it's generally a family member or somebody who's really close to the family who ends up abusing children. And this is, I think 5 to 10% stranger danger, as far as child sexual abuse goes. And other types of abuse and other forms of abuse can happen in, daycare situations and babysitters, neighbors, things like this where people are actually watching the child. But generally it's in the home and it's somebody the child knows. And this is horrific because these people are supposed to be, these are the people that are supposed to be looking out for these children, I mean, it just breaks my heart because I grew up this way. And, people just think it's just discipline or, it's just a dysfunctional family. And they don't realize the scope and the depth of the abuse that just goes on, behind closed doors. And even when social services and social workers are involved, really rarely is there ever anything done until the child's dead and it's too late. And, this situation is horrific, right? That's why I keep speaking out, I sound like a broken record on here. I go back and I listen to shows, periodically, and I just take a listen to some of my older shows periodically just to see, where I was at and what I was talking about. And it's just, you end up feeling like a broken record, after a while. And it's so true, right? Because we're saying the same thing over and over. Like all the advocates out here who are fighting to stop child abuse, really, we're just saying the same things over and over and over again. And that's because children are dying over and over again. Children are being abused over and over again. It's the same old situation. Nothing's changed, And it's really unfortunate, because it's really all up to the people who are abusing these children to stop abusing children. The rest of society is not really their fault. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not the guy down the street. He's not abusing children. He's not abusing his own children. It's not the woman down the road. She's not abusing her children or anybody else's child. It's these people that are abusing children. They just need to stop, right? But how do you reach them? Because obviously there's something wrong with them or they wouldn't be abusing children, right? Like it's just horrific. I mean, I look at this situation because I look very carefully. I'm not really I don't consider myself to be a victim, even though I was a victim. I'm a survivor and I'm a thriver. But the thing is, I look at the situation all the way around, the 360, full scope view of what, my parents were what was the situation in my home, you know what I mean? And I'm able to see very clearly what was going on with my parents who, were the main perpetrators of the abuse in our home, and then a sibling actually abused me as well. So you sit there and think about what were the issues, what really was the issue. And so many times, people abuse children. I mean, for many reasons, right? But mainly, it's just it's ignorance. It's just hatred. It's ignorance. It's just bad behavior all the way around. There's no reason to hurt a child, right? It's poor parenting skills and people who don't care. Like my mother, grew up abused. So she just passed the cycle right on, and she thought that she was perfectly justified. Like she would tell me, like, she would beat me up and then send me to school, and I'd be like, "What am I going to tell the teacher about my face, or about these bruises or this black eye or this fat lip or whatever?" And she'd just be like, "I don't care. Tell them I hit you. That's my right. I'm your parent. I can do what I want. I can kill you if I want." That was my mother's attitude, and she used to say that. She used to be like, "I can kill you. It is my right." That's how a lot of people feel. There's a lot of parents, and I mean, let's just say, take people out of the equation, and let's say moms and dads. Let's get a little bit more personal, moms and dads, and caregivers, people who are, grandparents, and people who are really responsible for a child's well-being. So many times, in the abuse situations, they just feel justified in doing what they do. Oh, well, I had to teach my child a lesson. I had to, discipline. Many times it's that, and it's not discipline, it's abuse. Anything that hurts and harms a child. And, if you read the actual definition of abuse, you know what I mean? Even the threat to hurt and harm a child is abuse. And I'm glad that those rules are in place. I really am. There's some people that disagree with it, but actually I'm all for it because, hey, if people can't govern themselves, then they need a government. If people can't, can't control themselves, they need rules. And so, that's just the issues. Okay? So, I mean, of course, almost all advocates out here speaking about, primary prevention advocates, especially speaking out against child abuse, we all sound like a broken record. It's because we're saying the same thing, all of us. We've got to stop this mess because these kids, they are counting on us to do something about this. And I mean, I look around in my own community and like what's being done is being done so covertly. You just don't see it. Yeah, I mean, you just don't see. And I live in a big city. It's not a huge city, but it's a good-sized city. And you'd think there would be more noise, more local noise, newspaper articles, stuff, advertisements on the local TV stations, more about, the issues that children are being abused, and the children, their safety and well-being really is everyone's responsibility. And so we all need to, to know the signs and symptoms of abuse and to report it. If we know and even if we suspect a child's being abused, a report made in good faith, is just that. Because you could save a child's life, right? And the sad thing is that people just think, oh well, child abuse. I mean, it can't be all that common, but it really is. Like the stats in the United States show. I don't know about Canada, but I know because Canada doesn't do much. As far as stats go. But the States is working on it, which is great. Canada needs to take that lead, to take that, to sort of, pick up the pace, like the United States at least is doing something about it. And, there's the stats are what they are. 1 in 3 to 4 girls and 1 in 6 to 7 boys will be sexually abused under the age of 18. And recently they've come up with some different stats just by the numbers, and they say that 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 4 boys are sexually abused under the age of 18. And that could be anything from unwanted sexual touching to, to molestation, to rape, you name it, exploitation, whatnot. And the issues are is that this is pretty well probably the same in Canada. Maybe the numbers aren't quite as high. We don't have as big of a large of a population, but we know it's happening, right? And in the communities, where's the noise being made? Where's the people speaking out against it? It's just like it's almost like people just don't want to see it because it's too hurtful, it's too painful. Well, what's really painful is to be abused. So who really cares if people really want to see it or want to know about it? It's kind of like too bad, because children don't want to know about it, but children are being raped. Children don't want to know about abuse, but they're being beaten and tortured. Children don't want to know about abuse, but they're being, thrown out of their homes or they're being neglected. Right? And it's just, it's just sad. It really is. It's just unfortunate. And we all end up sounding like broken records, like I'm saying. But it's just important that people realize that, the more people that get involved and the more voices there are, the better. That's why, I saw, when I began speaking out publicly about child abuse and speaking out against it, like I had, what really prompted me to do it was that I had seen a lot of people out here doing this, just a lot of just regular people, just voices, whether they're survivors or not, people out here speaking out about it and saying, look, this has got to stop. We have to change this. And I thought, hey, I want to be a voice too. I just want to be one more voice with everybody else, and make as much noise as possible. And I don't mind doing it. You know what I mean? It's not something. It's not enjoyable. You know what I mean? It's not fun, and you don't win a lot of friends doing this sort of type of work, But it doesn't really matter, because what really matters is these kids out here, this needs to change. This absolutely needs to change. And, you just look around and you see all the headlines all the time, headlines popping up day after day after day. Children being abused, children losing their lives, and little kids being tortured and maimed and sexually abused, and it's just horrific, And see, I can put myself in their shoes because I've been there. So, like, I know, what these little kids are going through. And I know, what it is to grow up in a home full of violence and full of hatred. And people wouldn't even understand the level of hatred that I grew up in. You know what I mean? They wouldn't even understand it. Like, they wouldn't be able to grasp it, the level of destruction. And that's just unless you've been there, right? And so that's why a lot of people just have a hard time even thinking of child abuse, because if they haven't been abused, they don't really know what it'd be like to be a child growing up in a home like that. And it's incredibly hard on these children. And if it doesn't kill them as children, quite often they'll kill themselves later with drug abuse, criminal activities, high risk behaviors, alcoholism, ending up in the penal system and in prisons and whatnot, and you just name it. I mean, or they'll just kill themselves. And it's like, I can understand. I can see what's going on with these little children. And I think, we have the next generation of, the children that actually live and survive the abuse. We have the next generation of survivors who are going to have to deal with this aftermath of being abused, And it's horrific. It's absolutely horrific. It's got to change. And it won't change as long as people just don't get involved. Like, we really need everybody, right? If everybody would get involved, the only people that wouldn't involve would be the people that were abusing their children, and then we could point them out a lot quicker. Yeah, it'd be like, okay, there's one, we spotted them, all right. Because honestly, there's a lot of people out there that think it's fine to abuse children, and then they abuse their own children, whatever they're doing, torturing them, beating on them, burning them, stabbing them, killing them, raping them, whatever, just ignoring them, rejection, emotional abuse, psychological abuse, throwing them out of the home, just any number of types of things. And then, they show up for work the next day, and we work these people. But they're not going to tell you that they abused their child. They're not going to come to work and say, oh, yeah, I raped my son last night. They're not going to come home and say, oh, yeah, I beat the crap out of my daughter last night. No, they're not going to admit to that, right? And so, we work with these people. These are people that live right next door to us. These are people that, drive down the street. I think about this all the time because my parents were two abusers, and they lived in the community. People lived right next door to us, and people knew what was going on in the home, but they just figure, oh, well, that's their problem. That's certainly not ours. We're not going to get involved. We don't want much to do with the family, so we'll just stay on our side of the fence, right? But, people knew. And, my parents were part of society. They worked, they were out in the public, but they didn't go to work and say, oh, yeah, we just trash our children and we verbally berate them and we kick them around and slap them and, we just hurt them all the time, psychologically, emotionally, and beat on them. And, they're not going to go and confess that at work, these abusers, these abuser people, mostly parents and some, other people involved, they work with us. They go to the same grocery stores we do, and it just makes me sick that they blend right in with society, and yet they could go home and do these horrific acts to these poor, innocent, vulnerable, completely helpless children. And then there's a whole group of society saying, well, they must have deserved it. They were probably just bad. That's what people used to say about me. And the sad thing is like, yeah, true enough. And yeah, okay, maybe my attitude really does kind of suck. You know, I mean, I am a little bit jaded, but I'm jaded because I was abused. You know, I didn't start out this way. I started out a cute little innocent little girl, and I was just mistreated horrifically. And so yes, I'm a bit jaded and I'm a bit cranky. You know. But I can still have a good time, and I can still get along in society. That's great. But the thing is I will always and forever be jaded, you know, and I will always be forever scarred by the abuse, right? And so you can't ever change that, right? But the thing is these kids out here, you know, my God, they deserve so much better. And they, you know, there's no excuse and there's no reason to hurt a child. There's absolutely no excuse for it. And people say, well, that's what they get. They're going to misbehave, or they're going to talk to you like that, or they're going to do this, or they're going to do that. And then this is my response, you know, a fist to the face, or you know, a beating, or burning them, or killing them, or stabbing them. You know, I mean, I talk a lot, especially on this show. Like at night, I talk a lot about the situations that I, you know, of kids that I knew grew up who were abused, and you know, I don't mention names or anything, but you know, I mean, we have parents stabbing their kids, right? You know, I mean, I knew a boy who was stabbed by his father, stabbed in the back, you know. And I mean, this is horrific, right? Like, why would you do that to a child, right? Like, why would you do that? You know, you wouldn't do that to your child, you know. Like, that's not at all acceptable, you know. And my mother used to bash my head in and actually knock me into appliances, you know, like knock my head into the corners of the dryer and things like that, you know, could have killed me. And that's why I would say, I was just telling her, go ahead, one more blow and I'm dead, not to my misery, please. You know, that's some serious stuff, you know, concussion after concussion. And, you know, this is the thing, like, you know, you don't do that to your children, right? But people do. You bet they do. Beat on them senseless with a belt, just beat them till they're bloody. You know, my mother used to do that to me. And that's not right. There's no excuse for that. There's absolutely no excuse. A child cannot do anything to warrant that because there's better ways to handle it. But that's what I'm saying. This all comes down to real ignorance and real poor parenting skills. And how are we going to change this? There's so many ignorant, really bad parenting people out there. Bad parenting. You know, it's like whether they're the actual real parents or whether they're the foster parents or whether they're the adoptive parents or whether they're the just the caregivers in the situation, some sort of family members who have stepped in and take over the care of that child. They really don't have a clue what they're doing, and they're just hurting these children. And it's just like people say, well, what are we going to do? You know, it's like can't put a camera in every single home and be big brother to every single family. It's like, I mean, I wish we could. It'd be like, oh, there's one busted, you know, but you know, you can't do that. So what are you going to do? I mean, it's really sad that it has to come down to harsher sentencing. I mean, that's after the child's been killed or murdered. That's after the child's been abused. I mean, that's not the answer either. I do believe in for penalties. You bet I do. And I do believe in the law. I'm 100% pro-law and 100% pro-government. You bet I am. Because people can't govern themselves and people need laws because they're insane. So there you go. But yeah, no, we really need stiffer penalties. Absolutely we do. But what we really need is for people to stop abusing and killing children. That would solve the whole problem right there. But how are you going to get psychotic people to stop doing these things to their children, right? I mean, especially when they think they're justified and they think it's great. And I mean, I keep saying, like over and over, like on these shows, you know, we have to reach the younger generations who are going to be the next set of parents. And we have to reach them. We have to basically be, you know, get a hold of them actually from kindergarten on, you know, like preschool, and then, you know, kindergarten and then first grade all the way through 12th grade. And they shouldn't be allowed to graduate until they can pass courses on healthy parent-child relationships, anger management, how nonviolent ways to discipline, all kinds of stuff like that, to give them some ideas, because children aren't seeing this in their homes. If they're being slapped around and abused and, you know, punished in these, you know, really degrading ways that actually break down their spirit and break down their ability to be a good parent, then they need to see something on the outside. They need to see something. They need to get that information from somewhere. You know, if it's not coming from the parents, then it needs to come from somewhere else. It needs to come from the schools. And people say, well, it's not really the school's responsibility. But it has to be then, right? Because who else is going to have to be able to spend that much time with these children to actually, get them to see that there are other ways, that they don't have to, when they grow up, kill their children. Because how many of these kids that are going to graduate, this is why I keep saying this, but it's so true. I'm actually going to start writing books about it, writing articles. How many kids that are going to graduate this year, I wish they would do a study, we're going to see them in the paper in about 2 or 3 years after they pop out a kid or two, and they're going to kill their children, or they're going to abuse them, sexually use them, and they're going to be busted, and they're going to be found guilty, right? That's who I'm interested in. That's what I'm talking about. People that are found 100% guilty of, child abuse of any type. How many of these high school kids are going to be in the paper and actually be convicted in the next couple of years? A lot. Quite a few. And this is sad because these poor little babies, these little 6-month-old babies, 3-week-old babies, 2-year-old toddlers, do not deserve to be treated like that. And the taxpayers then have to pick up the tab for these people to go to prison for killing and murdering their children or sexually using their children. And we're going to have to pick up the tab for that. Plus, we're going to have to pick up the tab for the cost of if the child lives and survives, of the care of the child. Like, this has got to stop, right? And if parents aren't going to educate their children, properly and show them through their own actions how to be a good parent, and how to properly parent, then it has to become the rest of the world's issue. We have to then find ways to do this. And, I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel, because you know why? Children have rights. And I'm just one small, tiny, very tiny percentage of the world that is speaking out about child rights. Because nobody cares that children have rights, but I do. Children have the right to life. And they have a right to an abuse-free life. That right was taken away from me. You know what I mean? Like, my rights were violated. My human rights. And that just makes me so angry, because people think, well, no big deal, you survived. It's like, okay, I survived. But you know what? I suffered. And no child should ever, ever, ever have to suffer like that. Not ever. Not even for one day. Not even for one day. But especially with a lifetime. Year after year of abuse. And, this is absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable. And so I'm willing to speak out about child rights, and that's why I do what I do. But there's not very many people that are really willing to do it, because it's not a popular subject. That's why. And you generally lose a lot of friends that way. People start hearing you talk about child rights. It's like, nah. We don't want to think about that. Who wants to deal with that? No, because it's not popular. It's real popular to go ahead and kill your children, but it's not popular to talk about stopping child abuse. Right? Hey, I'm telling you, look at all the stuff in the paper. Look at all the headlines that roll out. It's real popular to sexually use children, but it's not real popular to talk about stopping child abuse. Because you know why? Because look at all the child sexual abuse going on. It's unreal that it's that popular, and that advocates like myself, or public speaking advocates, public speakers, are frowned upon because we're out here making noise about stopping child abuse. But yet we have so many people involved in child pornography, involved in child exploitation, child sex rings, worldwide. That tells you how popular that is. It's very unpopular to speak out against this stuff, you bet. And that's why I do it, because I don't mind. I figure, hey, I've only got so much time left here on the planet. Why not? What am I going to do with my time that could mean more to me? It's like, as it is, I still have a life, But the thing is I do think about these children all the time out here, because I know what they're going through, and I know what they're going to go through. And this is horrific, and it's got to stop. And we all need to come up with some answers. There's kind of an interesting PDF. It's from the childwelfare.gov, Child Welfare Information Gateway. They have a 2011. Get that. It was created this year. It's a guide. It's a guide. They actually have these guides from like 2009, 2006, called Strengthening Families and Communities. And this is from Child Welfare Information Gateway, and that's childwelfare.gov. And if you go to their publications, it's a guide 2011. And it's a PDF, and you can download it. It's a 2011 resource guide. and it's put out by the Administration for Children and Families, Administration on Children, Youth and Families. It's a little letter from the Children's Bureau there. And what I really like is down at the bottom, way down at the bottom, there's 94 pages here, but way down at the bottom there's a tip sheet for parents. And it should be so simple. This should be something that should just be automatic, like healthy parenting tips, like nurture your child, be good to your child. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that should just be automatic, you know what I mean? But it's really not. And that's sad fact, is that it's really not. There is some really good information, and we're going to continue on with this. I want to actually look at this and talk about this stuff. Probably like next Wednesday we'll pick back up. But I wanted to give you this resource because it's 2011, and this PDF was actually done in 2011, which is amazing. So it's probably looking at the stats and the information coming in from 2009, 2010. Because the last one that they did, I believe, was 2009. They may have done one in 2010, but I didn't see it. But I know that they've done a 2009, Strengthening Families and Communities, but now they've got a 2011, which is awesome. And it's in Spanish as well. So there's just good information here, really, really good information. There's like tip sheets and all kinds of great stuff. And this is stuff that people should just automatically know. You know what I mean? People say, well, how would they know? Well, because anybody with half a brain would know that you need to nurture and take really good care of your children. Right? But my parents didn't know that. My parents thought it was just fine to just horrifically abuse us, and they thought it was great, even after getting hauled into court, and having to go in front of a judge and, plead for mercy, we were abused as children, and trying to come up with some sort of slack excuse for the abuse that they had been putting on us, and my siblings, And this is just horrific, but this is what people do. When they get busted, then they're crying another little tune going, oh, well, woe is me. And of course, then it becomes about them, not about the children, And it's really, really pathetic. But everybody knows that you should look after your children. Why aren't people doing it? Well, because they don't care. I mean, I grew up that way, so I know. And I spent a whole lot of time hanging around a whole lot of people, who were in the same boat as I was. Children who were abused, teens and whatnot, all the way through my life. I've known so many people who have been abused. And you look at the lifestyles of where they came from, and people would say, well, hey, abuse happens in rich neighborhoods too. It's not just people living on the other side of the track, coming from, poverty situations, because, we were right at the poverty line. But the thing is, for North America, that's still doing pretty good, right? Around the world, that's not very good at all. But in North America, right at the poverty line, you still eating, right? Still have food and still have a place to sleep, so that's pretty good. But this is the thing, it doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come from, because abuse happens in every kind of home, every type of home. It doesn't matter whether the family's got money, whether they're rich, whether they're poor, it makes no difference. Poor people living under the poverty level love their children too, and there's lots of good parents who are living under the poverty level who take really good care of their children. And then you have rich people abusing their children. See, so it has nothing to do with money, it has a lot to do with ignorance. Just sheer ignorance and not caring about those children. Because I know where that comes from, because my mother used to beat the crap out of me, and she'd be like, I don't care. I don't love you. I don't care about you. I don't care if you die. You should have died. I should kill you now. That's what my mother used to tell me. And so I know that these little kids out here are hearing this from their parents or from the caregiver, whoever's abusing them. I know this is what they're hearing, right? In my case, is not special, right? I'm just one person who grew up, living through a life of abuse, And so, I know that these kids out here are hearing this, right? And this is absolutely unacceptable. So we need to, whatever you see in your own local communities, that's going on that really is making a difference and helping, to promote education and awareness regarding child abuse, make sure you do get involved. Like nationally, get involved with groups like Dream Catchers for Abused Children, get involved with internationally, like whatever, but just find something that really suits you and suits, what you can do, to get involved. And then just get involved. We need more and more and more people standing up in this, right? Because that's what it takes. That's what it's taken since the very beginning. It's going to take us all to get this changed, right? So make sure you do get involved somewhere. So Have a great night, everybody. I'll be back on tomorrow morning, one child abuse survivor to another, and then I'll be back on the weekend on Saturday. So hope you have a good rest of your week. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. I've got like over 40,000 shows listened to, and almost 42,000 shows, and I appreciate that. Like that is just so awesome. I appreciate people spending that time with me. And November's going to be 2 years that I've been on Blog Talk Radio, and I just appreciate your support and everybody tuning in. So take good care of yourselves and have a great night. We'll talk to you real soon. And remember those kids out there tonight who are going to die, right? Don't forget about them, right? Have a great night, everybody. Bye-bye.